Alright, today on Full Metal American, I'm going to teach you guys how to make your very own char cloth, which is this. And it is simply basically carbonized natural fibers or fabrics. And what it allows you to do is start a fire with this, with flint and steel. Now, there are a couple ways to do this. Normally, I would use a fire outside with a tin container, which is going to be our char cloth oven, and there are various forms of this. I'm going to show you guys how to make your own. But today we're going to do something that everyone can do, and that's use a hot plate or a stovetop. I'm using a hot plate today. Now, first and foremost, you must observe fire safety when doing this. When you do this, it's going to give off fumes. So I recommend you're in a vented area. I'm in a garage with open doors and windows. If you do this in your house, it's going to smell really bad. So the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is create your very own oven. So there are a couple ways to do this simply. I'm using today a simple tin gum container. Works great, cheap, easy. Altoid containers are what most guys use. You can buy these cheap tin containers on Amazon and other places that are a little more historically accurate if you're doing living history. And let me tell you, if you're doing living history, nothing breaks, the wall or the illusion that you're going back in time, especially if you've got an audience, like seeing someone try to make a fire with matches or a lighter. It instantly breaks it. Not only that, it makes you look bad. It makes you look like you don't know how to make a fire the traditional way with flint and steel. That's one reason to learn how to make char cloth and make a fire with flint and steel. And we're going to have a follow-up video where I show you guys how to use the char cloth to start a fire the traditional way. The other reason is it is a great survival skill. Lighters are not everywhere. Not every survival situation you're going to have a lighter or matches, but you can find flint fairly common, and you can find a piece of scrap steel pretty easy. This one obviously was forged and cast, but it's not hard. You can even use an old rasp or an old file. So there's a couple different ways to do it. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to make a tin oven. So we're going to start with this thing. Now what you need is any kind of container that opens and closes that can be sealed like this, or this with a lid. If you wanted to go really old school, say you're doing medieval or Iron Age reenactment or living history, you could use a clay pot with a hole through the lid or something like that. But first thing you need to do is you need to get a tin container, and you need to put a hole in it, and the hole needs to be quite small, not very large at all. So what I typically do is you can either use a drill or you can use a hammer and a nail like I'm doing right here. So we got our nail, right, and we've got our hammer. Pretty simple. You guys have probably done this before on other projects you've done, but in this case, I'm putting it through the end. You can put it through the top, pretty much any side. I don't recommend on a container like this with a side opening lid that you stick it on the lid. So you just, bam, got our hole in it. Look at that. Pull it out. And this hole's quite large. They don't have to be this big. I actually prefer for them to be smaller. Because what it does is this will heat up, and the natural material that you put inside, and I'm going to show you what kind of materials you can use here and how to gather them here in a second. Goes inside, it heats up, and it essentially burns the material without flame. The same way you make charcoal. Blacksmiths used to do it, charcoal burners used to do it in the Middle Ages, where they would mound burning coals or wood under soil and things like that. And you're going to have gases that leak out of this, and these gases are flammable. So I'm just letting you guys know that right up front, and I'll show you a cool little trick you can do to help kind of reduce the smell here once we get started. So the next step is finding natural materials. Some things that work quite well are cotton. Cotton balls work. The best thing to use, I find, to save money, obviously you don't want to waste good cotton. This is just from the inside of like an ibuprofen bottle or something. It's the packaging cotton that they use. So stuff like that works quite well. Old cleaning patches from guns. Make sure you don't have too much oil on them though. A lot of times I'll wash mine under hot water to get the oil out, and I'll let them dry in the sun or on a counter before I reuse them for this. But we're going to do kind of an experiment here. We're going to put different materials in here, and we'll see how they turn out, and hopefully we'll get some good char cloth like this. Now what the char cloth does while I'm prepping this is it catches a metal shard, spark, or ember, and it holds that ember. And then you'll mix that with your other burning material. And again, I'm going to make a follow-up video that shows you guys how to use that burning char cloth to produce a fire or get your fire started. What I usually use is old t-shirts. It has to be 100% natural materials though, like I said before. If it is not 100% natural, and you should check this one, I don't know if you guys can see that, is 100% cotton. Being 100% cotton, it's not going to melt and create nasty plastic residue. So you get a pair of scissors, cut some of the material out, and you cut it into strips or pieces. Usually about the same size as a gun cleaning patch or a muzzle loading patch. That's what I like to do. Bigger wads like this, it's not a terrible idea. It'll burn slower, it'll hold more of an ember. And then you pack that into your tin, and we're going to use both of these. I'm going to make enough for both, just as a demonstration to show you guys how different tins work, right? But like I said before, this does put off a pretty foul scent. It's not terrible smelling, but it's not good to breathe in. And if you're living in an apartment or somewhere where you've got fire alarms and neighbors, and there's a chance someone will call the fire department on you, I strongly suggest you go outside on a porch. You know, and if you're somebody who doesn't own property or can't get to somewhere like that, go to a park and use one of the, you know, the grills that they usually have at parks. Those metal ones that are standing up. Make a charcoal fire, or even just, you know, after you're done cooking meat on a grill, sometime with charcoal, just throw your tin full of, you know, char cloth material in there, and you can make some. So now what we're going to do is we're going to heat up our hot plate. You no longer have smoke coming out of those holes. So we're starting to get smoke out of the smaller container, and it's actually coming out of the lid, not the hole on the bottom, surprisingly. Maybe it's because we've got it packed so full. But that's alright. You can have more than one hole inside your container. But as you can see, it produces a lot of smoke. And it has kind of a sweet smell to it. But you probably don't want to be breathing in an unventilated area, and it will set off your fire alarms at home. And so we're getting good smoke out of both containers, and you're just going to let it go until there's no more smoke coming out of the containers. Now if you start seeing flames coming out of the holes, that means that you made your hole too big and there's too much oxygen getting inside the container and it's burning with a flame, which is just going to leave you with a tin full of ashes, which is what you don't want. You want it to carbonize the material and create basically just, you know, a small piece of charcoal that will catch a spark very easily. As you can see, our hot plate is glowing, and the smoke, and like I said, it gives off a lot of smoke, especially if you've got a lot of material. So you need to be in a well ventilated area. As you can see, I've got the door open over there, and I'm, you know, walking in and out, getting fresh air. You know, it's important to do that. Don't sit here in the fumes the whole time. So our smoke is starting to teeter off. So we know that we're almost done. You know, so just a couple more minutes and it should be good to go. See if it'll light for us here. Now you are going to get a lot of carbon buildup and creosote and stuff like that on the inside of your containers. So they will be a little difficult to open sometimes. Another thing is when you take them off, make sure that they're cool so you don't burn yourself. A lot of guys get really eager to check out their char cloth, take a look at it, be like, oh yeah, and they crack it open and you burn yourself. So be careful, guys. Like I said, go out, get air. This is better to do outside. It's kind of cold today and the hot plate doesn't work as well when it's cold, so that's why I'm inside. Normally I would just make a fire outside and do it right in a fire pit and it would work just as well. Alright, so we're not getting any more smoke. We've turned our hot plate down to 0, so it's off. And we're going to let it cool, and then we will take it off and take a look at what we've made. Alright, so we've taken our tins off. They're still cooling. While we're waiting for that, I'm going to show you guys how a piece of char cloth can actually catch an ember or catch a spark. So you pull a single sheet off once you're done, and this is stuff I'd already made, but we'll take a look at the stuff I just made in a second once it's cool. You take your flint and steel and you strike downward toward it like this, and it'll put a spark into it. Got it. There we go. And when you're making a fire with it, you just add a little air to it, and see, you've got a nice burning ember. And obviously if you mix that with tinder, it'll work a lot better. But look at that. So simple, so easy. Now when I make my video about, you know, how to use flint and steel to make a full-fledged fire, you know, unfortunately video games, media, and movies have taught us that it's easy to use flint and steel to make a fire. You'll see guys in movies and in games just go up to a bunch of sticks without any real tinder, without any char cloth, and they'll just strike a couple times and poof, you got a fire. It does not work that way. You have to have proper tinder, and you have to have proper char cloth that's prepared. And you also have to have proper technique with your striking. But like I said, I'm going to make a follow-up video to this that's going to explain how to do all that stuff for you guys step by step. So it looks like our char cloth is ready to open up and take a look at, so that'll be the next thing we do. Now it can be real hard to get these open. I had to use a screwdriver to kind of loosen it a little bit because it does build up residue. Yep, you can see it along the edge there, that it's built up kind of a brown residue, and it gets quite sticky. And on the top you get a ton of residue. But looks like we did get some decent char cloth. It didn't go through completely. We got a couple pieces here that are not fully completed. We could have let this burn a little longer. But we also got some good sections of char cloth here that's very usable. And you can just cut away the fresh parts, or you could burn it again if you had to. We went kind of quick today because I'm just doing a demonstration. I normally would have let it burn longer than that, but I wanted to get through it and just show you guys. But on the bottom especially, we got a bunch. Now it looks like the cotton you know, did okay. It burned up a lot more than I would have liked, but it actually came out looking pretty good. And I bet that would catch an ember really easy. A lot of good material there. So it turned out all right. It wasn't bad. So yeah, we got some very usable, nice black, good pieces. And so let's take a look at our other container and see how that did. And that way we can do kind of a comparison of which container works better. Now I will tell you, this one was kind of difficult to open. My suspicion is this having this lip on it where you can catch right a hold of it, yeah, way easier. And you can reach right in there and pull out your char cloth. And we kind of overfilled these a little bit. I definitely put a lot more material in there than maybe was necessary. But I'm a little low on char cloth right now, so I wanted to use this opportunity to make a bunch. So let's take a look. You just saw me pull the char cloth out. It's right here. Let's see if it'll catch an ember. You know, so we pull out a good chunk of it right here. Good piece, right? Pretty decent. Put the rest of these away. We don't want to make a massive fire here in my shop here. And the great thing is you can put it right back in the container that you made it in and use that as part of your fire starting kit when you're camping, doing survival stuff, and just add that right to your pack. It's light. You can make more char cloth if you have to, you know, when you're out and about. But so we got a nice piece here. Let's see if it'll catch a spark and see if we did a good job on it. Yep. And there you go. Look at that. And you could mix that with some birch bark, a number of different materials to help get yourself some flame going if you need to start it. So you can just take a bit of birch bark like this. I'm just doing a small piece as a demonstration. Easy to do when you've built a bundle of it. I personally like to use grasses. Bark doesn't always catch right away. It's a good to have in your mix though, and I'll show you guys how to do that later. It's good to have in your mix of kit. You know, have a little bit of towel mixed in there, some old jute cord. You know, and you'll get smoke, it'll get burning. You can get your towel going, and it will work, but you've got to have more dry grass and things than I've got right here. I don't have a tube prepared for you guys. But pretty amazing that you can have something as simple as that with a little bit of this, and you can get a burning ember going. You can see why this was such a jump in technology from, you know, using a bow drill or something like that to start a fire. Just put that out. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys learned something. I enjoyed showing you guys how to do this. I'm sorry I couldn't get all the little tricks working for you. I couldn't get a flame right away off this. It's easier when you've got a tube bundled together and you light the end of it and you can get it burning on the end and just stick it right in the fire and it's self-contained. I'll do a video on that showing you guys how to do all that. But nothing is ever simple and easy. Sometimes you do have to put a little bit of work into it and practice, and I'm a little out of practice, to be honest. But next video coming up, flint and steel, starting a fire with it. So thank you guys. Please like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it helps you out in your journey to becoming a better survivalist, better outdoorsman, and a better living historian. You guys have a good day and a blessed time.